Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we commit to taking complex, world-changing texts and philosophies and hand you the synthesized knowledge you need to walk away feeling truly informed.
Today, we are opening a book that has sold, well over 100 million copies worldwide. It's Kahlil Gibran's The Prophet.
And its influence is just astonishing. It seems to cut across every conceivable cultural line.
It really does. It was first published in 1923, and I think its power is rooted in its philosophical ambition. Gibran was a poet, a philosopher, an artist. He was born in Lebanon, but he wrote this in New York.
So he's already bridging worlds right there.
Exactly. And he does something remarkable in the book. He synthesizes all these ancient spiritual traditions. You can feel Christianity, Sufism, Eastern mystical thought, and he blends them with these very modern questions about life.
It's this quest for a kind of harmony, a unity that's achieved through love. And that seems to be why it resonates so deeply in Muslim cultures, Christian cultures, and even secular ones.
Right. So our mission today is to really unpack the central advice that Gibran, through his main character, Almustafa, is offering to humanity.
And this isn't just a book report. We're looking for the surprising details, the powerful analogies, and the truths that really challenge our modern ideas about life and relationships. We want to spend some real time on the most difficult concepts he presents.
And we have to start with the frame, with the setup of the story,
Right.
because it dictates the entire mood of the book. We meet this character, Almustafa.
Whose name means the chosen and the beloved.
Right. And he has waited 12 long years in this harbor city, Orphalese, for the ship that will finally take him home.
Okay, so let's unpack that because there's so much tension in that setup. The ship finally arrives on the 7th day of Ayalul, which is the month of reaping.
That symbolism is definitely not an accident. It's a season of harvest, of culmination. But when the ship arrives, he feels this ecstatic joy. But it's immediately followed by this incredibly deep sadness.
He realizes that leaving isn't just packing a suitcase. It's something much, much deeper.
It's existential. Yeah. He talks about leaving fragments of the spirit scattered in these streets and children of his longing that he's leaving behind. And then he gives us this really painful, profound truth about what separation feels like.
This is the line that just stops you in your tracks. It is not a garment I cast off this day, but a skin that I tear with my own hands.
It's so visceral, isn't it? It's not like taking off a coat. It's a necessary, painful severing of living part of himself.
And it's also a warning about staying too long, about inertia. He says that if he stayed, he would freeze and crystallize and be bound in a mold.
He knows that danger of spiritual stagnation. His soul has done its work here, and if he doesn't move on, it will ossify, it will die. The community, of course, they don't want him to go. The elders call his presence a noontide in our twilight.
They're literally begging him to stay. And the priests and priestesses admit that they never really expressed their love for him until this moment of separation.
Which is when we get that classic line, love knows not its own depth until the hour of separation.
It's so true. And all of this fear and sorrow in the community, it leads to this one big request. Elmitra, the seeress, steps forward.
And she was the first one to believe in him when he arrived all those years ago. She asks him to share his truth, to disclose us to ourselves, specifically about everything that lies between birth and death.
Which is, everything. It's the whole human condition.
It's the whole mission statement for the book. And his response is perfect. He doesn't say, I'll tell you the future. He says he can only speak of that which is even now moving your souls.
So it's not going to be some abstract sermon. It's going to be a mirror. He's going to reflect back their own deepest, most immediate concerns.
Exactly. Which brings us right to his first and biggest topic, love.
So part one is all about the paradox of intimacy. And Al-Mustafa, he doesn't waste any time. He makes it clear that love is not this easy romantic thing. It's a high calling. But his first move is a huge caution.
A massive one. He says, follow love, sure, but know that the path is hard and steep and there's a sword hidden in its wings that may wound you.
That just sets the tone immediately. He is rejecting any kind of sentimentality.
Completely. Love isn't just soft affection. It's this profound, transformative, and often, painful force. It's both creation and destruction.
He says it will crown you and crucify you.
Right. And those two things are not opposites. They're part of the same process. It's for your growth and your pruning.
That analogy he uses next about being threshed and ground, It sounds utterly brutal. Is he basically saying that intense suffering isn't just possible in love, but it's required?
I think he is, yeah. He uses this series of really powerful agricultural metaphors. He says, love gathers you like sheaves of corn.
Uh-huh.
Then it threshes you naked to separate the grain from the husk. It sifts you to get rid of the lightness, grinds you to whiteness, and finally kneads you until you're pliant.
And that whole process is so you can become sacred bread for God's sacred feast.
Yeah.
It's this complete, it's a model for spiritual perfection through suffering, right?
Exactly. And the whole point of this intense process is to reveal the secrets of your heart so you can become a fragment of life's heart. It becomes prescriptive. He's saying if you choose this path, you have to accept the whole deal, including the pain.
And this is where it gets really interesting to me because he directly addresses the fear of that pain, the desire to, get the good parts without the bad.
Right. He warns that if you only seek love's peace and pleasure, it's better to just leave the threshing floor for a seasonless world.
That phrase, a seasonless world, is so haunting. What is that world?
It's the world of mediocrity, of spiritual immaturity. In that world, he says, you'll laugh, but not all of your laughter, and you'll weep, but not all of your tears.
So you're choosing to live a half-life, basically.
It's a devastating critique of superficiality. You choose comfort over completeness so you can strain your own emotional capacity. You avoid the deep sorrow. But in doing so, you also miss out on the deep joy.
The comfort seeker is doomed. And this leads him to define love itself, which is radically non-possessive.
Love gives nothing but itself and takes nothing but from itself. It doesn't possess, and it can't be possessed because love is sufficient unto love. If you're looking for validation or gain from love, you've missed the point entirely.
This is the core spiritual pivot of the whole book, I think. He tells you to stop seeing yourself as the center of everything. Don't say, God is in my heart, but say, I am in the heart of God.
That reframes everything. You're not the container for the divine. You're contained within the divine.
Yeah.
And that means you don't direct the course of love. If it finds you worthy, it directs your course.
And any desires you have within that love have to be selfless. They should be about vulnerability, to melt like a brook, to know the pain of too much tenderness.
And to bleed willingly and joyfully. It's an active, conscious embrace of sacrifice. It demands total honesty.
Okay, so from that intense, purifying idea of love, he moves to the more practical structure of marriage. And this section has probably his most famous advice.
For sure. He starts by acknowledging the union is profound. The couple is together forever, even in the silent memory of God. But then comes the crucial warning.
Let there be spaces in your togetherness.
That's the one. He says the winds of the heavens must dance between you. It's his fundamental requirement for a healthy union. You have to maintain your individuality, or the souls will just suffocate.
He uses these beautiful metaphors to explain it. Love one another, but don't make it a bond. Let it be a moving sea between the shores of your souls.
You can fill each other's cup, but don't drink from one cup. You're partners, but you're still independent seekers.
And the musical analogy is the one everyone quotes. Sing and dance together, but let each be alone.
Even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music.
I've always wondered about that. If the strings are alone and never touch, how do you get harmony? Isn't there a risk that all this space could lead to, coldness or distance?
Well, that's the paradox, isn't it? Harmony isn't about fusion. It's about disciplined distance. Each string has to have its own identity and tension to create its specific note. If they touch or go slack, you don't get music, you get noise.
Ah, okay. So your individual resonance is actually required for the couple's harmony to even exist.
Exactly. The health of the relationship depends on the health of the solitary soul within it. And this goes for the emotional core, too. He says, give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping.
Because only the hand of life can contain them. He's saying your ultimate security has to be with the divine, or with life itself, not intruding to possess another person's inner world.
And even physically, he says, stand together, but not too near. The pillars of the temple stand apart. The oak and the cypress don't grow in each other's shadow.
They can't. They need their own space for light and air to grow strong.
Right. The pillars have to be separate to hold at the roof. If they lean on each other, the whole thing comes crashing down. It's a total rejection of codependency.
And that theme of necessary detachment, it goes to its absolute extreme in the next section, on children. This is where he gives what is probably his most challenging idea for any parent.
Your children are not your children. That line just fundamentally redefines the whole relationship. It completely removes the idea of ownership.
They're not your property, not an extension of you. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself.
Life seeking to express itself in a new, unique way. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they don't belong to you.
And the limits on the parent are so clear. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts. Emphatically not your thoughts.
This is so critical. He says their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You can't impose your vision from yesterday on a soul that is destined for tomorrow.
Life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday. So this all culminates in that famous archer and bow metaphor.
The parents of the bow, the children are the living arrows. And the archer god, fate, whatever you want to call it, bends the bow so the arrows can go swift and far.
And the parent's role is just to be a stable, willing instrument in that process. Your bending must be for gladness.
Because the archer loves the stable bow just as much as the flying arrow. Your worth isn't in controlling where the arrow goes, but in being a strong, trustworthy vessel for a purpose that's bigger than you.
So what does bending for gladness actually look like for a parent today? Is it just letting go of your ego about your kids' achievements?
It is exactly that. It's letting go of the ego. It's understanding that your child's independent path isn't a threat to you. It's the fulfillment of the whole system. The bow has to be strong enough to handle the tension and let the arrow fly without attachment.
It's an active, joyful acceptance of non-ownership.
Exactly. Realizing that the child's destiny is ultimately in the archer's hands, not yours.
So all of part one really establishes that true intimacy requires this profound self-surrender and this courageous acceptance of space and paradox. You have to be willing to be threshed, and you have to be willing to let go.
All right, so now we shift gears pretty dramatically in part two. We're moving from the inner world of love to the very material world of, sustenance, work, and commerce.
And this is where Gibran really integrates the spiritual into the everyday. He insists that these daily acts are actually forms of worship. He starts with giving.
And right away, he cuts through any superficial ideas about generosity. True giving, he says, is giving of yourself, your time, your energy, not just your stuff.
He sees possessions as just things we hoard out of fear of the future. And he critiques that fear itself. He calls the fear of need a thirst that is unquenchable. It's a spiritual scarcity mindset.
He also calls out what he calls unwholesome gifts, the ones you give to get recognition, or where you're trying to feel superior to the person receiving it. Whereas the highest givers, they give without even thinking about virtue. They're like the myrtle plant that just breathes its fragrance into space, because that's its nature. It's an outflowing, not a transaction.
And the ideal way to give is unasked, through understanding. You anticipate the need out of empathy. He even says the joy of searching for someone to give to is greater than the act of giving itself.
Which totally flips the script, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It makes the receiver a source of fulfillment for the giver, and then he just radically removes the giver's right to judge. He says we think, I'd give, but only to the deserving.
But the trees and the flocks don't do that. They give so they can live, because to withhold is to perish.
Right. If someone is worthy of life, of their days and nights, then they're worthy of receiving whatever you have to give.
That's a huge mandate for universal generosity, but he also has a warning for the receiver, too. He says don't feel a weight of gratitude, because that puts a yoke on both of you.
Because ultimately, the giver is just a witness. He says it is life that gives unto life. It takes the ego out of it for both people.
The next section, on eating and drinking, takes this totally mundane act and elevates it into worship.
It really does. He starts with this almost ascetic ideal, wishing we could just live on the fragrance of the earth or be sustained by light.
But since we can't, since we have to kill to eat and rob the young of its mother's milk, the act has to be sacred. The table becomes an altar.
It's a way of acknowledging the necessary violence of existence, the fact that for us to live, something else has to die. And he says this requires a deep spiritual acknowledgement of that cycle.
When you kill a beast, you have to say to it, by the same power that slays you, I too am slain, and I too shall be consumed.
It's about establishing continuity. He's saying your blood, the animal's blood, it's all just the sap that feeds the tree of heaven. We're all part of the same system.
And when you crush an apple, you have to know that its seeds will live on in your body. It's this profound call to mindfulness to realize we're just conduits in this huge eternal transformation.
Your meal becomes a spiritual act, not just a biological one. You remember the vineyard and the wine press, even when you're drinking the wine in winter.
Okay, so if eating is worship, then work Gibran argues, is love made visible.
Yeah, the purpose of labor is to keep pace with the earth and the soul of the earth. Being idle is basically stepping out of life's majestic procession. It's a failure to meet your spiritual obligations.
He says work is fulfilling a piece of Earth's furthest dream. And by working, you are loving life, and that love makes you intimate with life's inmost secret. It's not about a paycheck, it's about spiritual fulfillment.
And he builds this incredible chain of logic. He says, life is darkness unless there is urge. Urge is blind unless there is knowledge. Knowledge is vain unless there is work.
And work is empty, save when there is love. That's the final necessary ingredient.
Working with love means you weave cloth as if your beloved will wear it. You build a house as if your beloved will live in it. You infuse everything you make with a breath of your own spirit.
You're an artist in whatever you do. And he completely dismisses the idea that some jobs are more worthy than others. The wind doesn't speak more sweetly to the giant oaks than to the blades of grass.
The marble carver is no nobler than the plowman. The painter is no greater than the sandal maker. It's the spirit in the labor that matters. Work is love made visible.
But then he offers this very stark, very controversial alternative. If you can't work with love, if you only feel distaste for your work,
Wrong.
what does he say to do?
He says it's better to leave your work, sit at the temple gate, and take alms from those who work with joy.
Wow.
Because indifference contaminates everything you make. If you bake bread with indifference, it's bitter bread that only feeds half the hunger. If you grudge the crushing of the grapes, your grudge literally distills poison in the wine.
So the quality of your spirit directly impacts the quality of your physical product. Bad work isn't just inefficient, it's actively harmful.
Exactly. You're feeding people poison. Better to be honest about your emptiness than to transmit that negative energy into the world through your work.
And these same principles of justice and love have to apply even in the marketplace, which he covers in Made Enough, on buying and selling.
Right. The earth gives us abundance, but our exchange of that abundance has to be done in love and kindly justice.
The warning is severe. Without that justice, exchange just leads some to greed and others to hunger. Commerce has to be a spiritual equation, not a zero-sum game.
Which is why he says you have to invoke the master spirit of the earth to sanctify the scales. And then he makes this really striking critique of what you might call unproductive labor.
The barren-handed. He says don't let them take part, the people who just sell words for labor, who profit from others' work without contributing themselves.
It's a tough concept for our modern economy, which is built on so much abstraction. Gibran insists that value has to be rooted in tangible effort, but he immediately balances that.
Right, because he makes sure the arts are valued. He says you must buy the gifts of the singers and dancers and flute players.
Because what they bring, though fashioned of dreams, is raiment and food for your soul. So the artists who feed the soul are essential. Spiritual needs are just as important as material ones.
And the final civic duty of the marketplace is this powerful call for social responsibility. Before you leave, you have to make sure no one has gone his way with empty hands.
The master spirit of the earth won't sleep until the needs of the least are satisfied. It's a clear statement on social justice that collective well-being depends on the well-being of the most vulnerable.
All right, shifting into part 3, we're getting into some deeper, more complex territory now. Morality, justice, and the inner struggle. And his section on crime and punishment, it just completely destroys our usual ideas of guilt.
It really does. He starts by saying that wrong happens when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind, alone and unguarded. So it's an internal failure first. The first consequence is spiritual. The wrongdoer has to wait unheeded at the gate of the blessed.
Then he breaks down the self into 3 parts that are present during any crime. First, the undefiled God self, which is like the ocean or the sun. It's always perfect. Then there's the conscious man, the part that knows right from wrong.
And then the crucial part, the shapeless pygmy that walks asleep in the mist. This pygmy is our unconscious, underdeveloped, fearful self. It's the part that acts blindly and commits the transgression.
And here's the radical part. He says the wicked cannot fall lower than the lowest part that is in all of you. No one commits a wrong without the hidden will of you all.
That is a concept of shared accountability that just completely undermines our legal system. The community is always responsible for creating the environment where the pygmy self acts out.
It's a profound philosophical move. He states, flat out, the murdered is not unaccountable for his own murder, and the robbed is not blameless in being robbed.
And that's not about victim blaming. It's about a universal spiritual connection. He's suggesting that in a truly harmonious society, these crimes wouldn't happen. The collective energy, the fear, the resentment, the lack of awareness, it all contributes to the event.
That is an incredibly heavy burden to place on everyone. It means the righteous aren't innocent of the wicked deeds. The guilty is often the victim of the injured.
And the condemned person becomes the burden bearer for the guiltless. Good and wicked are woven together like black and white threads. So a judge has to weigh the spirit, the thief in spirit, the one slain in spirit.
And he asks, what penalty can you possibly lay on someone whose remorse is already greater than their crime?
Because remorse, he says, is the true justice it calls unbidden in the night. Real justice isn't about external punishment. It's about internal realization. It requires looking at everything in the fullness of light.
So after that critique of justice, he turns to laws themselves. He says, people love making laws, but they love breaking them even more, like kids building sandcastles just to knock them down.
The real critique is aimed at people who see law as this rigid thing, a chisel, to carve life into their own image. He describes these lawmakers with such negative imagery: the cripple who hates dancers, the ox who loves his yoke.
The old serpent who can't shed its skin.
Exactly. And he says those people stand with their backs to the sun. They see only their shadows, and their shadows are their laws. Their rigid, fearful rules are just projections of their own limitations.
So true freedom is rising above the need for those kinds of shadow-based rules. The spiritually free are like the skylark, who can command it not to sing. They just naturally transcend the need for those kinds of laws. This leads directly into freedom. People claim they worship freedom, but Almustafa points out this painful irony.
That they worship it even as slaves humble themselves before a tyrant. The freest people, he says, wear their freedom like a yoke and a handcuff.
The core paradox here is that you're only truly free when the desire for freedom becomes a harness, when you stop talking about it as some external goal to be achieved.
He's challenging the idea that freedom is something granted to you by a government. He internalizes all of it. The chains you want to break, you fasten them yourself.
An unjust law, he says, was written on your own forehead. You can't erase it by burning law books. The tyrant isn't just outside. You have to destroy the throne you've erected for him inside yourself first.
It's a complete internalization of tyranny, a fear you want to dispel. The seed of that fear is in your heart, not in the hand of the person you're afraid of. All our limits are self-imposed.
And everything is in this constant opposition inside us, the desired and the dreaded, the repugnant and the cherished.
You can't escape that flux. And he ends with this stunning idea. Freedom, once it loses its chains, becomes itself the fetter of a greater freedom. The pursuit of liberation is endless. It just leads you to a new, higher level of responsibility.
Let's turn now to the inner governance of the self. Reason and passion. This is a classic duality. The soul is a battlefield, right?
Right, where reason and judgment fight against passion and appetite. But Almustafa immediately says this is the wrong way to look at it. They need synergy, not dominance. They aren't enemies.
They're the rudder and the sails of the soul.
The rudder is reason, the sails are passion. If you break either one, your soul just drifts or stands still. No passion, no motive force, no reason, no direction.
And the danger of imbalance. If reason rules alone, you're confined, you stagnate. But passion alone is a flame that just burns itself out.
So the solution is to exalt reason to the height of passion, so it can sing, and direct passion with reason, so it can live through its own daily resurrection and, like the phoenix, rise above its own ashes.
That phoenix analogy is so powerful. Passion, when it's guided by reason, is constantly renewed, not consumed.
You have to treat them like two equally loved guests. To favor one over the other is to lose the trust of both. He even connects this back to the divine. God rests in reason and that cool, serene contemplation.
And God moves in passion, the storm, the thunder, the creative force.
And since we're a breath in God's sphere, we should do the same. Rest in reason and move in passion. We have to embrace both the cool judgment and the overwhelming, turbulent force of emotion.
All right, part 4 shifts focus again to how we seek and share understanding. And he starts with this deep link between joy and sorrow. He calls joy your sorrow unmasked.
The very same well that your laughter comes from was often filled with your tears. It's another one of those vital paradoxes. The deeper sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain.
Your capacity for life is directly proportional to your capacity for suffering.
And he uses these amazing crafting analogies to make it stick. The cup that holds your wine was burned in the potter's oven. The lute that soothes your spirit was hollowed out with knives.
The vessel of your soul is shaped by fire and by being cut open.
Exactly. So when you're joyous, you have to look deep and realize it's the very thing that gave you sorrow that is now giving you joy. They're inseparable. When one is at your table, the other is asleep in your bed.
We're suspended like scales between them. Only when we're empty are we balanced. They're the weights that determine our spiritual substance. He moves right from sorrow to pain, and he defines it as the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It's necessary for growth.
The stone of a fruit has to break for its heart to stand in the sun. He urges us to keep our hearts in wonder at daily miracles, so that pain seems no less wondrous than joy. We have to accept the seasons of our heart.
And then back to that theme of radical self-responsibility. Much of your pain is self-chosen.
It's the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. We have to trust this internal physician, whose hand might be heavy and hard, but it's guided by the unseen. It's empowering. It means our suffering isn't random. It's necessary medicine.
When she's asked about self-knowledge, she addresses this human need we have to, put words to our inner truths. Our hearts know secrets, but your ears thirst for the sound.
But he immediately sets boundaries on that knowledge. He emphasizes humility. The self is a boundless, measureless sea. So the key advice is to be humble and keep seeking. Don't say, I have found the truth, but rather, I have found a truth.
And don't claim ownership of the journey. Don't say, I have found the path of the soul, but I have met the soul walking upon my path.
It's an acknowledgement that spiritual progress is relative and personal, not some universal map. The soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals, not a straight line. It's organic, complex. You can only ever see one layer at a time.
And that complexity ties right into his ideas on teaching. He basically says, no one can reveal anything to you that isn't already half asleep in your own knowledge. The teacher is just a catalyst.
A wise teacher doesn't give you his wisdom. He gives you his faith and his lovingness. And crucially, he doesn't invite you into the house of wisdom. He leads you to the threshold of your own mind.
The student has to take that last step alone.
There's a clear limit on how much deep understanding can be transferred. The astronomer can't give you his understanding of space. The vision of one man lends not its wings to another. You have to achieve it yourself.
Okay, moving into practical living, his sections on houses and clothes are these fascinating critiques of comfort and superficiality. For houses, he says your house is your larger body and it dreams.
And he has this really important warning against comfort and the lust for comfort. This speaks so directly to our modern consumer culture.
This lust is stealthy, he says. It comes in as a guest, becomes a host, and then a master. He calls comfort a tamer that murders the passion of the soul. That's a shocking indictment of seeking too much ease.
Your house has to serve your spirit. It should be a mast, not an anchor. An eyelid, not a film over a wound. It has to respect your infinite nature.
And for clothes, he says they can easily become a harness and a chain. He reminds us the earth loves to feel our bare feet, the winds long to play with our hair. It's a callback to a more natural, authentic way of being.
Speaking of natural connection, his teaching on friendship defines it as something much more than just companionship. Your friend is your needs answered.
There's a profound security in it. You don't have to fear the nay in your own mind. Thoughts and desires are shared without words, with this unacclaimed joy. There's no performance.
And parting shouldn't cause grief, because what you love most might be clearer in absence, as the mountain to the climber is clearer from the plain.
The purpose of friendship has to be solely the deepening of the spirit. If you're looking for anything else, it's just a net that catches the unprofitable. You should seek your friend with hours to live, not hours to kill. It's his role to fill your need, not your emptiness.
The discourse on talking brings us back to that internal solitude. He says we talk when we cease to be at peace with your thoughts. Sound becomes a diversion.
And here's the danger. In much of your talking, thinking is half murdered. Thought is a bird of space that's caged by words. The need to articulate it actually reduces its complexity.
Some people talk out of fear of being alone, to escape that silence that reveals their naked selves. Others just speak truths they don't really understand themselves.
The ideal communication is when the spirit moves you. So the soul keeps the truth. Like you remember the taste of wine long after the color and the vessel are gone. It's about the essence, not the words. The astronomer then asks about time, which we humans are obsessed with measuring. We make it a stream to watch.
But the timeless part of you, Almustafa says, knows that yesterday is just memory and tomorrow is just a dream. The deepest part of you dwells in the first moment which scattered the stars into space. He's saying that measuring our lives by hours is missing the point. The true moment is the eternal one.
Time is undivided and paceless, just like boundless love. It's about integrating the past, present, and future into one single eternal moment of consciousness.
And finally, he touches on good and evil. He says he can only speak of the good in you. Evil, he says compassionately, is just good that is tortured by its own hunger and thirst.
Goodness is wholeness. You are good when you are one with yourself. A divided house isn't a den of thieves, it's just divided. Striving for things isn't evil.
But he gives this powerful warning against false kindness. You're not evil when you limp, but the strong and swift shouldn't limp in front of the lame thinking that's kindness. Be authentic. The good in you is the longing for your giant self.
And lastly, on prayer. We're urged to pray not just when we're in distress, but also in the fullness of your joy and in your days of abundance.
Right. Prayer isn't just asking for things when you're in trouble. It's the expansion of yourself into the living ether. It's about making yourself fully present and whole before the divine, in both sorrow and in joy.
So we have distilled all of this, and it seems the core philosophy of the prophet today really is built on these two inseparable pillars, paradox and radical detachment.
Absolutely. The paradox demands we accept duality. Love crowns and crucifies. Joy and sorrow are inseparable. You can't have one without the other, or you risk living that seasonless half-life.
And the detachment is so critical. Children are not yours. Marriage requires space, and freedom is ultimately self-imposed. The chains you break were fastened by you.
He offers this cohesive philosophy where every single human act, eating, working, loving, is a spiritual discipline. It's all aimed at achieving this unity with the boundless.
And the ultimate message is that life is this dynamic flow, a constant state of becoming. The only way to fail is to stand still, to freeze and crystallize and be bound in a mold, as he warned at the very beginning.
You have to embrace the movement and the struggle, trust the physician within you and the archer above you.
So here's where it gets really interesting as we close this deep dive. Right at the end of the book, Almustafa is ready to go. And he says, "A voice cannot carry the tongue and the lips that give it wings. Alone must it seek the ether." Now, if the profound truth he shared was his voice, and the city of Orphalese was the tongue and lips that let him speak but also confined him, then the provocative thought for you to carry forward is this.
What ultimate core truths, your own unique, painful wisdom, are you holding back right now? What essential piece of your own spirit are you keeping caged by your fear of departure or your lust for comfort, just waiting to be set free to seek the ether alone?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Kahlil Gibran's The Prophet. We hope this helps you move in passion and rest in reason.